All right, Chiefs Kingdom. I'm not going to lie. This feels like one of those moments where the entire direction of the offseason suddenly gets interesting. Because on one side, the Chiefs are clearly preparing for a major shakeup in free agency. Cap space is opening up, positions all over the roster need help, and this front office looks ready to be aggressive for the first time in a while. But then another headline drops, and it might change the entire conversation around this offense. Stefon Diggs is about to hit the open market. And suddenly the Chiefs are being mentioned as a potential landing spot. I'm Victor, and if you've been following this team closely, you already know why this moment matters. Kansas City has big questions at receiver, uncertainty around Rashee Rice, and we still don't even know what Travis Kelce is going to decide about his future. So today we're breaking down what the Chiefs could actually do in free agency, and why the possibility of Diggs joining Patrick Mahomes might be one of the biggest storylines of this entire offseason. And real quick, if you love Chiefs news and real fan-to-fan conversations about this team, hit subscribe and help us reach 1,600 subscribers. Nari. Every single one helps the channel grow and keeps these daily updates coming. Let's start with the first big storyline of this offseason, because if you've been following the team closely, you can already feel that this year is different. For the last few seasons, Kansas City basically operated in what you could call maintenance mode. The roster was strong, the team was deep in the playoffs every year, and the focus was mostly on keeping the core together. But this offseason, that approach is clearly over. We've already seen the first signs. The Chiefs released Mike Dana, moved on from Jawan Taylor, and then made the huge decision to trade Trent McDuffie. On top of that, Patrick Mahomes restructured his contract, opening cap space so the front office can actually be aggressive when free agency starts. And honestly, they may have to be aggressive, because the list of needs on this roster is pretty long right now. We're talking about running back, wide receiver, edge rusher, defensive tackle, safety, and nickel corner. That's a lot of positions to address in one offseason, which means the moves Kansas City makes in free agency are going to shape the entire draft strategy. Let's start with running back, because that's one of the clearest holes on the roster. There are a few tiers of options out there, but the big names being discussed are Kenneth Walker III and Travis Etienne. Walker would probably be the most expensive option, while Etienne could come slightly cheaper but still give the Chiefs a real playmaker in the backfield. Then you've got more budget-friendly options like Rico Dowdle or Tyler Allgeier, who might not be stars but could still stabilize the run game early in the season. At wide receiver, things get interesting too. There's no obvious superstar on the market except maybe Mike Evans, but he's expected to cost serious money. The more realistic options could be players like Jawan Jennings or Romeo Doubs, guys who can win physical matchups and give Mahomes reliable targets. The reality is the Chiefs might need reinforcements there sooner than expected, especially with the uncertainty around the receiver room long-term. Then you look at the defensive side. At edge rusher, names like Jalen Phillips, Boy Mayfield, or even veterans like Khalil Mack and Cameron Jordan could enter the conversation depending on price. And on the interior defensive line, players like Deshaun Hand, Kiris Tonga, or Roy Lopez could help next to Chris Jones, which is something this defense has needed for a while. The big takeaway from all of this is simple. The Chiefs now have cap flexibility, draft capital, and multiple roster holes. That combination means the next few weeks could completely reshape this team. And as a fan, I'll be honest, it's actually kind of exciting. Because when Kansas City gets aggressive in roster building, things usually get interesting very quickly. But here's the twist. While the Chiefs are exploring all these free agency options to rebuild parts of the roster, a completely unexpected name has suddenly entered the conversation. And if this next rumor actually becomes reality, it could instantly change the entire look of the Chiefs' offense next season. Now let's talk about the second story, because this one could seriously change the conversation around the Chiefs' offense. According to reports, Stefon Diggs is about to hit the open market after the Patriots decided to release him at the start of the new league year. That immediately makes him one of the biggest names available in free agency. And naturally, the Chiefs are being mentioned as a potential landing spot. Now, if you look at the situation in Kansas City right now, you can understand why this rumor even exists. First, there's uncertainty around Rashee Rice, who could be facing a suspension. Then you've got Travis Kelce, who still hasn't made a final decision about whether he's coming back or retiring. On top of that, veterans like Marquise Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Tyquan Thornton are heading toward free agency. So the reality is pretty simple. The Chiefs may need help at wide receiver sooner than expected, and when a player like Diggs suddenly becomes available, every contender is going to at least take a look. Now let's be real about who Diggs is at this stage of his career. He's 32 years old, so you're not signing him as a long-term piece. This would be more of a short-term move for a team that wants to stay in a championship window, but the production is still there. Diggs has recorded over 1,000 receiving yards in 7 of the last 8 seasons, and he has 5 seasons with more than 100 catches. In terms of pure production, only a few receivers in the league have been as consistently productive as him. That's why analysts are already saying he could become one of the top prizes in this year's free agency class. Of course, there are some risks. Age is one factor, recent injuries are another. And depending on the contract he's looking for, teams may hesitate to commit big money to a receiver entering his mid-30s. But if the price ends up being a short-term deal, that's exactly the type of move a team like Kansas City might consider. Because, let's be honest for a second, if you put Stefon Diggs in an Andy Reid offense with Patrick Mahomes, defenses suddenly have a completely different problem to deal with. He's still one of the best route runners in football, he knows how to get open quickly, and he's the type of veteran receiver who understands how to operate in high-pressure situations. Now, does that mean the Chiefs will definitely sign him? Of course not. Free agency is unpredictable, and Kansas City still has several other positions to address. But the fact that his name is now available and that the Chiefs clearly need receiver help makes this a storyline worth watching. And when you connect that with the first story we talked about earlier, it tells you something important about where the Chiefs are right now. This team has cap space, multiple roster needs, and a front office ready to be aggressive. They're looking at running backs, edge rushers, defensive tackles, and now possibly wide receivers. In other words, this offseason could reshape the roster faster than many fans expected. As a fan, I look at it like this. There's definitely some uncertainty around the team right now, especially after missing the playoffs, but there's also opportunity. If the Chiefs make the right moves in free agency and the draft, they could reload this roster very quickly. And if a player like Stefon Diggs actually enters the picture, then the entire conversation about the Chiefs' offense in 2026 might change overnight. So, when you step back and connect both stories, Chiefs Kingdom, the message is pretty clear. Kansas City is entering one of the most important offseasons in years. The front office is creating cap space, exploring multiple positions in free agency, and clearly preparing to reshape parts of the roster after a disappointing season. Running back, receiver, defensive line, there are real decisions coming at almost every level of this team. And now, with a name like Stefon Diggs potentially hitting the market wide, it shows just how quickly things can change. One move in free agency could shift the entire direction of the offense. For me as a fan, that brings two feelings at the same time. There's some concern because this roster still has holes to fix. But there's also excitement because when Andy Reid, Brett Veach, and Patrick Mahomes have flexibility to rebuild a roster, we've seen before how fast this team can turn things around. The Chiefs might be in a transition moment right now, but it could also be the beginning of the feast and next version of this team. Now, I want to hear from you, Chiefs Kingdom. Do you think the Chiefs should actually go after Stefon Diggs or would you rather see the team invest in younger receivers through free agency or the draft? Drop your opinion in the comments. I read a lot of them, and I love seeing the different takes from fans who follow this team every day. And if you enjoy this kind of Chiefs breakdown, real news, real reactions, just fans talking football, make sure to hit like and subscribe. We're getting really close to 1,600 subscribers. And your support honestly helps this channel grow a lot more than you might think.